Hello?
Hi, Nancy. Nothing
Hey,
yet.
how's it going?
It's going nowhere, apparently.
Life not yet rated.
Life not yet rated.
Okay, what's happening? Tell me what's the deal is.
Okay, so we just left another appointment from the hospital, and everything looks the same. You know, everything, there's nothing, no bad news. It's all fine, and other than the fact that I'm at 41 weeks, 5 days, and I was really resistant to schedule an induction, but I mean, I don't know, I guess I just kind of felt back to the corner, kind of had to, and just to be safe, I guess. And so I'm scheduled for Wednesday in 2 days to go in at 10 o'clock in the morning to start the process.
Okay, Wednesday, 10 a.m.
I'm hoping, though, to try to get this going before then, obviously.
Right.
I wanted to ask you if you had any other things that I am not able to try or don't know how to, or what about that I could do now, or...
Yeah. Well, first off, scheduling the induction is always good because sometimes that makes stuff happen. You know what I mean? Just knowing that it's on the calendar. But first off, I wanted to ask you, is there any mix-up on your dates or anything? You're pretty sure that the 20th was your due date?
That's what I was wondering myself. I was like, I could have... There's no, even if I were accurate on when the first day of my period was, last period, it's like there's nothing medically scientific, like there's nothing that they can't accurately find when my due date is. And I could have been wrong on when that date even was myself, which could then doubly make it inaccurate. So I'm like...
Yeah, because if you have a longer cycle or a shorter cycle, et cetera, what did they base your due date on? Last menstrual period, or did they base it on an early ultrasound?
Last menstrual period. The first day of my last period.
Okay. When was your first ultrasound?
10 weeks.
10 weeks. And did they confirm the due date via that ultrasound?
No. There was no...
Okay, so the earlier the ultrasound, the more accurate the due date. You could always ask them to go back to your file and say, what due date did you have written for me at the 10-week ultrasound? Not what day by LNP, but by the ultrasound. Because sometimes women don't know when they have their last period, so they'll ultrasound them and they're like, oh, you're 6 weeks or you're 8 weeks, because they can tell, you know, anatomically or whatever's going on with the baby, you know, the sac, the heart rate, the heartbeat, that kind of thing. They go, oh, you're 6 weeks. If you get ultrasound, you find out, you know, I missed my period for 3 months, and you get ultrasound, and they're like, oh, you're 14 weeks. That's less accurate than a 6 or an 8 week.
Mm-hmm.
So if you did get one at 10 weeks, you could say, is there any due date listed on that? Because sometimes they'll just go with the first one. They'll go with the LNP before they'll go with the ultrasound, unless you say you don't know what your last menstrual period was. You know, call the midwife maybe and see what she says.
Okay.
You know.
Okay, so
and how did they talk about induction? Did they say how they would do it?
It sounds like Pitocin was where they would have gone straight away, but I was like, I want to utilize all of my non-drug options first. So, you know, stripping of the membrane, then, you know, the balloon, what was it called? Like,
oh yeah, the Foley cap.
Foley. Yeah, the Foley.
Yeah, the Foley bulb.
And then... So she's like, well, we could do that. You just let them know that you want to do that, and like maybe they'll do that, and then whatever that artificial prostaglandin is, stick that up there. Yeah, that. And she's like, you know, try that and see if that's an option. She's like, it depends on where your cervix is at. And then, but then after that, it would be Pitocin.
Do you think that they would have been okay letting you push the induction out a little bit, or was that Wednesday their drop dead day that they're not going to let you go past?
Well, I would have to sign a piece of paper consenting, like that I understand what's the word before? Yeah, the risks. I understand the risks if I were to decline 42 weeks or go past 42 weeks. So they definitely give me that option to do that if I wanted. But they're still being, you know, because the hospital, they're still kind of like, we really like, you know, 42 weeks, and they're throwing all these risk factors at me, all the things that could go wrong, and it's like, well, yeah, I could get hit by a car across the street too, but, you know, the risk of everything.
And to be fair, there is a population of women that are meant to be pregnant 43 and 44 weeks. We just don't hear about them so much anymore because of this whole you should have your baby by 42 weeks thing.
Yeah.
So there are women that are meant to be pregnant longer. We're not exactly 100% sure when your last menstrual period was or when you conceived or, all that.
Mm-hmm.
But I understand, you kind of play by their rule. My next question is, if you do get induced, are you still governed by the midwives or are you handed over to the doctors then?
I believe I'm under the care of the midwives all the way through.
I've had clients drink Senna tea, Senna. That's a more gentle laxative, and that can sometimes get you going into labor because you're post-date and probably feeling kind of stressed out, being pressured, like when's this baby coming? There'll probably be a little meconium when the baby's born. I wouldn't worry about it. It's not that big a deal. It's really common with post-date babies. So don't be surprised if that happens.
And another reason why I wasn't stressing too much too was just and thinking that maybe my dates were wrong or whatever is that I was pretty consistent at measuring 2 centimeters less than what you're typically supposed to measure at.
Right.
So I was like,
that's significant.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, well, clearly it's not like she's like freaking out in there, and the fluids look good and everything. So it's like,
yeah.
Maybe I'm 41. Maybe I'll be 41 weeks now. Or I don't know. So.
Yeah, maybe you're not even there yet.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you think about the Wednesday thing a little bit? Because if you don't, you'll have to go in anyway for a non-stress test. And you could always say, yeah, ixnay on the induction. We're not going to do that right now. And then just go for the non-stress test and sign your paper. Reflect back and see if you can't, just see how you feel.
Yeah, because the one thing that's still stuck in my mind that gets me the risk factors or the whole thing about stillbirth. I guess that's probably my biggest one is like your risks they're really high for women that go after 42 weeks or go up to 42 weeks, yada yada yada. And so I'm trying to weigh like, okay, maybe I'm not even 42 weeks, but what if I am? And then it's like, am I making a bad decision for my baby by being like, oh, everything's fine, I don't want to do it, but I risk her, her life? Like, at what point in that risk factor of stillbirth do certain medical things come into play that states, oh yeah, that's when your risk goes up, besides this number 42, because we can't accurately account for 42. So there's got to be something else.
Are there any other signs that you're heading there, is the question. Are perfectly healthy babies on Monday stillborn on Tuesday?
Yeah,
That's my question. Can you call one of the midwives and ask them?
Yeah, I could.
And just say, are there any, warning signs that things are getting bad? Like, maybe the heart rate doesn't look as good, or, the placenta isn't functioning as properly, and you can see evidence of that in the non-stress test. Or, what are you looking for? Okay, we know it's 42 weeks, but what if you weren't 42? Explain the background. What if I'm not quite 42 weeks yet? So what would we be looking for?
Yeah, well, and I heard the nurse too. She was like, her baby looks great, everything looks good. It's like, I'm fine, baby's fine. So why are we freaking out? And that 42 number. If they were like, oh, the fluid levels are at this point, and that's when we typically see a higher rate of stillbirth. Those are the kind of facts that I'm looking for versus 42 weeks, when that's not even a fact.
When you don't even know if you're for sure 42 weeks. Exactly. Well, maybe call one of the midwives and have a conversation.
Okay.
If you do decide to drink tea or anything, let me know. Just text me. I'm drinking tea. So I'm on red alert anyway, but,
Oh, yeah, I know. I'm so sorry, because I know you said you have a lot of birthdays in December.
Yeah, that's okay. No, don't stress that. I mean, baby's going to come and baby's going to come.
Thanks, Nancy. I'll keep you
Sure, of course. I was going to call you earlier this morning, but I didn't know what time your appointment was, and I was like, well, I'll call after you text me, but I'm glad you called me, so. Hang in there. She'll come when she's ready.
All right, thank you.
I'll talk to you later.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
"41 weeks, 5 days. Another fetal diagnostics testing. Everything looks good.
You start from the very beginning, before the beginning, with Pitocin, and that's the one drug I don't want.
A constant thing I had to struggle with in 3rd trimester. Super not fun. And you just get through it because you know it's temporary. Baby will be here soon and it'll be all over.